Sulfur Eaters. If there's life under Europa's ice, NASA's leading theory is that it's probably eating sulfur in total darkness right now. And the reason they think that has nothing to do with guessing. We've already seen it work here. In 1977, scientists discovered entire ecosystems thriving at the bottom of Earth's ocean, clustered around hydrothermal vents, in conditions that were supposed to be sterile. No sunlight, crushing pressure, toxic chemicals pouring out of cracks in the seafloor. And life was everywhere, feeding on sulfur compounds through a process called chemosynthesis. NASA's theory is that Europa's subsurface ocean could host chemosynthetic aliens doing exactly the same thing. The moon's core generates heat. That heat drives volcanic activity on the ocean floor. Those vents pump out sulfur-based chemicals. And if Earth's deep-sea life can build an entire food chain around that, there's no physical reason Europa's couldn't do the same. To give you a sense of scale, Earth's Mariana Trench goes down about 11 kilometers. Europa's ocean is estimated to be 60 to 150 kilometers deep, with twice the liquid water of all of Earth's oceans combined. If even a fraction of that ocean floor has active vents, you're not talking about isolated pockets of life. You're talking about ecosystems that could span thousands of kilometers. The Europa Clipper mission, launching in 2024, carries instruments specifically designed to detect chemical signatures of vent-based life, including sulfur compounds and organic molecules. NASA didn't just entertain this theory. They built a $4.25 billion mission to test it. We found life thriving at the bottom of our ocean in total darkness, eating sulfur. And NASA's response was, let's check if the aliens are doing that too. Not a bad plan, honestly. Radiation harvesters. Europa's surface is getting hit with 5 million times the radiation dose that would kill a human in minutes. And NASA has a theory that aliens might be feeding on it. And what's wild is that the radiation we thought would kill everything might actually be powering an entire biosphere. Jupiter's magnetosphere bombards Europa with high-energy particles constantly. A single day of exposure on the surface delivers a radiation dose equivalent to several million chest X-rays. For decades, scientists assumed this made the moon's ice shell completely sterile. Then we found microbes on Earth that can harvest energy directly from radioactive decay. They're called radiotrophic fungi, and they were discovered growing inside the Chernobyl reactor ruins, thriving in radiation levels that would liquefy human tissue. NASA-funded research has confirmed that certain extremophiles can use gamma radiation to split water molecules and extract energy, the same way plants use sunlight for photosynthesis. The theory NASA is investigating is that Europa could host radiotrophic organisms living in the upper ice layers, using Jupiter's radiation as their primary energy source. These wouldn't be microbes hiding from radiation. They'd be aliens that require it to survive. Some models suggest these organisms could exist in networks threading through the ice shell, which is 15 to 25 kilometers thick in most places. To put that in perspective, a dental X-ray exposes you to about 0.005 millisieverts of radiation. Europa's surface absorbs roughly 5.4 sieverts per day. That's over 1 million times higher. And the theory NASA is seriously investigating is that life might not just tolerate that, it might have evolved specifically to exploit it as an energy source unavailable anywhere else in the solar system. So the aliens might be thriving on the thing that would turn us into vapor. Cool. That's fine. Airborne microbes. NASA is about to fly a spacecraft through an alien geyser, hoping to catch living organisms mid-flight, and that theory is driving the actual mission plan. In 2013, the Hubble Space Telescope detected what looked like water vapor erupting from Europa's surface, reaching altitudes of over 200 kilometers. That's roughly the distance from New York to Philadelphia, pointing straight up. Scientists weren't sure if it was a one-time event or something ongoing. Then, in 2016, they saw it again, and again in 2019. The plumes are real, they're recurring, and NASA's theory is that they're venting living microbes directly from the subsurface ocean into space. Here's why that matters. If life exists in that ocean, the plumes could be ejecting it by the billions every time they erupt. No drilling required. No landing required. You just fly through the plume, collect samples, and analyze them for biological material. The Europa Clipper will do exactly that across dozens of flybys, using instruments capable of detecting organic molecules, amino acids, and even intact microbial cells. The theory NASA is testing is that Europa's plumes contain living organisms that survive the transition from liquid ocean to frozen vacuum. Earth microbes have been shown to endure vacuum conditions, extreme cold, and rapid decompression in lab tests. If Europa's ocean life is anywhere near as hardy as Earth's extremophiles, the plume material could contain viable organisms frozen mid-eruption, preserved exactly as they were in the ocean below. To give you a sense of scale, Old Faithful in Yellowstone erupts to a height of about 40 meters. Europa's plumes reach 200,000 meters, ejecting ocean water that's been sealed under ice for potentially billions of years. The material flash freezes the instant it hits the vacuum, which means cellular structures would be preserved intact. NASA is betting that if alien life is down there, catching it mid-flight is the easiest way to prove it. The plan is to fly $1 billion spacecraft through an alien geyser, hoping to catch aliens. This is the actual plan. Panspermia Seeds. Europa might not just be hosting life, but actively spreading it to other moons and planets. And NASA has funded research modeling exactly how that panspermia theory would work. And if they're right, Europa isn't just a habitat, it's a biological distribution system. The panspermia theory traditionally works in one direction. Life originates somewhere else in the universe, hitches a ride on a comet or asteroid, crashes into a planet, and seeds it with biology. But NASA-funded astrobiologists have started exploring the reverse scenario, where Europa is the source, not the recipient. The math works. Those 200-kilometer plumes are ejecting material at velocities high enough that some fraction could reach escape velocity from Europa's gravity. Not most of it, but some. And once it's free of Europa, it enters Jupiter's gravitational sphere, which means it could end up orbiting one of the gas giant's other moons, like Ganymede, Callisto, or Io. Over millions of years, enough plume material could accumulate on those moons to seed them with Europa's biology, assuming any of it survived the journey. Here's the part that makes this more than speculation. Earth bacteria have survived exposure to space on the exterior of the International Space Station for years. They endure vacuum, radiation, temperature swings of hundreds of degrees, and cosmic ray bombardment. NASA's theory is that if Europa's ocean life shares Earth-like biochemistry, there's no physical reason it couldn't survive interplanetary transfer the same way. Some models even suggest that if the plume velocity is high enough during particularly violent eruptions, material could be ejected from Jupiter's system entirely, spreading to the inner solar system over geological timescales. To put that in perspective, bacteria can survive in Earth's upper atmosphere at altitudes of 40 kilometers. The ISS orbits at 400 kilometers, and microbes survived on its hull for 3 years. Europa's plumes are ejecting material to 200 kilometers, and some of that material reaches velocities that could carry it across the Jupiter system. We've been looking for alien life, and NASA's theory is that Europa might have been mailing it to other worlds for billions of years. We just haven't checked the delivery sites yet. Bioluminescent Swarms. NASA scientists genuinely discussed the theory that Europa's alien ocean might glow in the dark like a planet-wide lava lamp, and the conclusion was that if life exists down there, it probably does. And in an ocean with zero sunlight, bioluminescence might not just be common, it might be universal. Europa's subsurface ocean sits under 15 to 25 kilometers of ice. No sunlight penetrates that far. The environment is pitch black, colder than Antarctica, and under pressure that would crush a human skull instantly. On Earth, deep-sea organisms solved this problem by evolving bioluminescence, the ability to produce light through chemical reactions. Anglerfish dangle glowing lures. Jellyfish pulse with blue-green light. Entire species communicate, hunt, and navigate using bioluminescence in environments where vision should be impossible. NASA's theory is that Europa's ocean life would face the same evolutionary pressure, and the solution would be the same: biological light production. But the theory goes further. In a completely dark ocean with no day-night cycle and no surface reference, bioluminescence wouldn't just be an advantage, it would be the primary sensory system. Every organism would need it to function. Some NASA-funded researchers have even suggested that if Europa's ocean contains a high enough density of bioluminescent life, the cumulative glow could be faintly visible from within the ice shell itself, creating diffuse light layers detectable by future lander missions. To give you a sense of scale, a firefly produces about 0.04 lumens of light. A deep-sea anglerfish produces roughly 0.1 lumens. If Europa's ocean contained trillions of bioluminescent organisms, the combined output could theoretically reach levels measurable by sensitive instruments, even through kilometers of ice. The idea sounds like science fiction, but it's grounded in evolutionary logic. On Earth, bioluminescence evolved independently in at least 40 different lineages. NASA's astrobiology division has included bioluminescence detection as a potential biosignature in mission planning documents. NASA scientists sat down and genuinely discussed the theory that an alien ocean might glow in the dark. That's where we are as a species. I love it. By the way, if you're enjoying learning about these theories, I post content like this regularly. I'd appreciate if you subscribed. Thanks. Fish level complexity. There's a non-zero chance that Europa has fish-like creatures breathing oxygen right now, and NASA has a theory about whether the ocean's chemistry could actually support that. And the process creating that oxygen is happening right now, whether anything's breathing it or not. Europa's surface ice is constantly being blasted with charged particles from Jupiter's magnetosphere. That radiation splits water molecules into hydrogen and oxygen through radiolysis. The hydrogen escapes into space. The oxygen stays behind. For decades, scientists assumed that oxygen just sat frozen on the surface doing nothing. Then they started modeling what happens over geological timescales. Some of that oxygen gets cycled down into the ocean through cracks, impacts, and tectonic activity in the ice shell. It doesn't happen fast, but it doesn't need to. Over millions of years, the oxygen delivery rate could build up concentrations in the ocean high enough to support complex, multicellular organisms that breathe oxygen the way Earth's fish do. NASA's theory is that if Europa's ocean has reached sufficient oxygen concentrations in certain regions, evolution could have produced something functionally similar to Earth's fish, gill-breathing aquatic animals with sensory systems, nervous systems, and mobility. Not fish exactly, but fish-equivalent alien life. On Earth, oxygen concentrations in the oceans didn't reach levels capable of supporting complex life until about 2.4 billion years ago. Europa's ocean could be somewhere in that middle stage right now. To put that in perspective, Earth's oceans contain dissolved oxygen concentrations of about 5 to 10 milligrams per liter. Europa's ocean oxygen levels are estimated to be building at a rate that could eventually reach 1 to 10 milligrams per liter in localized regions, depending on ice shell turnover rates. That's not a guarantee of fish, but it's enough to make fish-level complexity chemically plausible. NASA's Europa Clipper includes instruments designed to measure oxygen concentrations in plume material specifically to test this theory. So there's a non-zero chance that Europa has fish, alien fish, swimming under miles of ice in Jupiter's backyard. Sleep well. Salt-adapted aliens. We're seriously considering the theory that aliens might be swimming in brine so salty it would pickle a human on contact, and NASA thinks that's not just possible, but the most likely environment for Europan life. And those aliens might have biochemistry so different from ours that they couldn't survive in normal water. Europa's ocean isn't pure water. Spectroscopic analysis of the moon's surface has detected magnesium sulfate, sodium chloride, and other salts, which means the ocean is a brine, potentially saltier than Earth's Dead Sea. For most life, that would be instant death. Salt draws water out of cells through osmosis, dehydrating them until they collapse. But Earth has extremophiles called halophiles that thrive in brine concentrations that would kill almost anything else. They've been found in salt flats, salt mines, and evaporated lake beds with salinities 10 times higher than seawater. NASA's theory goes beyond just tolerating salt. The hypothesis is that Europan life could have evolved biochemistry that requires high salt concentrations to function, using salt-adapted proteins and membranes that only work in extreme brine. These organisms wouldn't just survive in salty water, they'd die in fresh water, the same way Earth organisms die in brine. Some models suggest that Europa's ocean could contain pockets of ultra-concentrated brine trapped within the ice shell, where salt levels reach saturation and freezing points drop below -50 Celsius. Life in those pockets would represent a completely alien branch of biochemistry. To give you a sense of scale, the Dead Sea has a salinity of about 34%. Earth's oceans average 3.5%. Some brine pockets in Antarctica's ice have measured salinities above 40% with viable bacteria inside. Europa's ice shell could contain brine pockets with salinities approaching 50% or higher, and NASA's theory is that life there wouldn't just tolerate it, it would be chemically dependent on it. We're seriously considering the theory that aliens might be swimming in water so salty it would pickle a human instantly, and they'd die if you put them in normal water. That's the bar now. Mechanical feeders. Jupiter is kneading Europa like dough every few hours, and NASA has a theory that aliens might be harvesting that mechanical energy directly the way plants harvest sunlight. And the energy source has nothing to do with chemistry or the sun. Europa orbits Jupiter at a distance of about 670,000 kilometers, close enough that the gas giant's gravity distorts the moon's shape with every orbit. As Europa moves closer to Jupiter, it gets squeezed. As it moves farther away, it relaxes. This happens continuously, creating friction in the moon's interior that generates heat through tidal flexing. That heat keeps Europa's ocean liquid. But NASA-funded researchers have proposed a theory that tidal heating might do more than just prevent freezing. The hypothesis is that organisms could evolve to harvest energy directly from mechanical stress, the way piezoelectric materials generate electricity when compressed. If Europa's ocean contains life that can tap into the tidal flexing cycle, they'd have access to a power source that never runs out as long as Jupiter's gravity keeps pulling. On Earth, we've never found anything that does this, because Earth's tidal forces are too weak. But Europa's are orders of magnitude stronger. To give you a sense of scale, Earth's tides move ocean water by a few meters twice a day. Europa's tidal flexing moves the entire moon's interior by up to 30 meters with every orbit, generating heat equivalent to detonating a nuclear bomb inside the moon every few hours, continuously for billions of years. The tidal heating rate is estimated at about 100 terawatts, roughly 7 times the total power consumption of human civilization. NASA's theory is that if life exists in Europa's ocean, it could have evolved mechanisms to convert that mechanical energy directly into biological energy, creating organisms that feed on gravity itself. Jupiter is essentially kneading Europa like dough, and NASA thinks aliens might be using that as a power grid. That's where the science is. Ice ceiling colonies. NASA has a theory that entire ecosystems could be living inside Europa's ice shell itself, stuck to the ceiling above the ocean like alien barnacles, and they've funded research to figure out how that would work. And if they're right, the ice isn't just a barrier, it's prime real estate. Europa's ice shell is 15 to 25 kilometers thick, and for decades, scientists assumed it was sterile, frozen solid, and biologically inert. Then they started finding life in Earth's ice. Glaciers in Antarctica harbor bacteria that survive by metabolizing minerals trapped in the ice. Lake Vostok, buried under 4 kilometers of ice, contains viable microbes. If Earth's ice can support life, Europa's could too, and NASA's theory is that it probably does. The hypothesis goes like this. Europa's ice shell isn't uniform. It's riddled with cracks, pockets of liquid brine, and veins of warmer ice caused by tidal flexing. The underside of the ice shell, where it meets the ocean, could be covered in microbial colonies, clinging to the ice ceiling, feeding on nutrients in the water below and minerals in the ice above. These organisms wouldn't need the ocean floor. They'd exist in colonies attached to the ice-water interface, potentially covering thousands of square kilometers. Some models suggest these ice-dwelling organisms could even build layered structures over time, creating bacterial reefs hanging from the ceiling like alien stalactites. To put that in perspective, Lake Vostok sits under 3.7 kilometers of ice and contains living bacteria. Europa's ice shell is up to 25 kilometers thick, with internal temperatures ranging from minus 160 Celsius at the surface to near 0 Celsius at the ocean interface. The ice-ocean boundary is a habitable zone, and NASA's theory is that if life exists there, it would colonize that interface the way barnacles colonize ship hulls. NASA's Europa Clipper won't detect life inside the ice directly, but it will map the shell's structure and identify regions where ice-ocean interactions are strongest. We're seriously discussing the theory that Europa has life living on its ceiling. That's astrobiology now. Bacterial megastructures. NASA is investigating a theory that Europa's ocean floor could be covered in massive towers built by colonies of microbes, essentially alien skyscrapers made of bacteria. And the numbers suggest it's not just possible, but likely. And if they're right, the ocean floor isn't barren rock, it's architecture. On Earth, microbes don't just float around. They build things. Stromatolites are layered formations created by cyanobacteria over thousands of years, some reaching several meters in height. Microbial mats cover entire seafloors. Hydrothermal vent chimneys get colonized by bacteria that form biofilms meters thick. NASA's theory is that if chemosynthetic bacteria cluster around hydrothermal vents on Europa's ocean floor, they could build massive colonies over millions of years, creating vertical structures that dominate the landscape. These wouldn't be plants or corals, they'd be bacterial megastructures, potentially kilometers wide and hundreds of meters tall. Some models even suggest that these structures could trap heat from the vents and create localized warm zones that attract other organisms, forming the foundation of complex ecosystems. The theory is based on what we know about bacterial growth rates and Europa's age. If the ocean has been stable for even a fraction of Europa's 4.5 billion year history, and if vent activity has been continuous, bacterial colonies would have had time to build structures that dwarf anything on Earth. To give you a sense of scale, Earth's largest stromatolites are about 3 meters tall. The biggest microbial mats on Earth cover several square kilometers. If Europa's ocean has had continuous vent activity for even 1 billion years, bacterial colonies could have built structures hundreds of meters tall, covering areas the size of cities. We're talking about forests made of bacteria, reefs made of slime, towers built by microbes. And NASA thinks this theory is plausible enough to include structural mapping in future mission proposals. We're seriously discussing the theory that Europa has an alien skyline at the bottom of its ocean, and nobody built it except bacteria. That's what we're working with now. Self-sustaining biospheres. We've been staring at the sky looking for life, and NASA's now betting on a theory that the real action is happening under miles of ice on a moon we can barely see without a telescope, in an ocean that's never seen a star. And if they're right, it means life doesn't need sunlight, doesn't need a surface, and doesn't need anything we thought was essential. The dominant theory for decades was that life requires proximity to a star. Photosynthesis drives Earth's ecosystems. Even deep-sea vents rely on oxygen that ultimately came from photosynthetic organisms near the surface. But NASA's theory about Europa challenges that completely. The hypothesis is that Europa's ocean could contain a fully self-sustaining biosphere that originated, evolved, and thrived without ever needing stellar energy. The ocean has been sealed under ice for potentially 4.5 billion years. No sunlight, no atmosphere, no contact with space. And NASA thinks life could have started there from scratch, powered entirely by geothermal energy from the moon's core and chemical energy from hydrothermal vents. If that's true, it rewrites the rules for where we look for life in the universe. It means moons with subsurface oceans, not planets, could be the most common habitats for life in the galaxy. And there are dozens of them. Enceladus, Titan, Ganymede, Callisto, Triton, everyone has evidence of subsurface water, and everyone could host a biosphere we'd never detect from orbit. To put that in perspective, Earth's deepest cave ecosystems, like Movile Cave in Romania, have been isolated from the surface for 5.5 million years. Life there evolved in total darkness, feeding on sulfur chemistry, with no connection to the outside world. Europa's ocean has been isolated 1,000 times longer. If life can survive and evolve in Movile Cave for 5 million years, there's no physical reason it couldn't do the same in Europa's ocean for 4 billion. NASA's theory even suggests that life could have emerged, thrived, and gone extinct multiple times in Europa's history, and we'd have no way of knowing unless we drill through the ice. The Europa Clipper mission won't land, it won't drill, but it will test whether the conditions for a self-sustaining biosphere exist, and whether the plumes contain chemical evidence that something lived there, even if it's extinct now. And this is the theory they built a $4.25 billion mission around, not to visit, to confirm. If this sparked your curiosity about what's out there, consider subscribing so you don't miss future space content. Thanks for watching.